Hello, and welcome to our little introduction about using Facebook Messenger on your mobile phone or your iPad. In this case, I'm using an iPhone. If you're using an Android phone or an Android tablet, the steps should be basically the same. And in fact, if you took a look at my other tutorial on working from your desktop, you'll also notice that a lot of the icons are the same as well. Now, if you don't already have Messenger on your phone, uh, Messenger and Facebook are a little bit different on a mobile device than they are on your desktop computer. So on your desktop computer, Messenger is part of when you log into Facebook, but on a phone or a mobile device, you can have the Facebook app and you can have the Messenger app. They're two separate apps. They work together. And in fact, you can use Messenger without a Facebook account, but most people will usually use Messenger in conjunction with Facebook. That's usually how it is used. Now, you note that in the fourth row of icons, starting from the top, that Messenger is there. It's a little blue bubble with what looks like a lightning bolt in the middle of it. And if you don't have it on your phone and you want to add it, that's when you end up going to a place like the App Store. And if you look on my icons on the screen here, you'll note that there's a blue square with what looks like a little white A in the middle, and that's for the App Store. On your Android device, you'll go to the Google Play Store, and you could do similar steps to what I'm about to do right now. So if I go touch on the icon for the App Store, it takes me into the App Store. And this is if I don't have Messenger on my phone or my iPad or tablet, as the case may be. So in this case, it shows me stuff that's the popular stuff that's being downloaded from the App Store, but I'm going to go and search for Messenger. So I'll touch where it says App Store, and I'm going to type in Messenger, and hopefully I've got the spelling right. No, I don't. Of course, it's Messenger. So if not, of course, it's not going to find it. But you'll notice even if I put in a little bit of the word, I'll see that Messenger comes up. And there's a variety of different Messenger options in there. I'm going to go Messenger app Facebook, and I'm going to touch on that. And what's going to be a little bit confusing is the first thing comes up is actually TikTok, but that's because it's an ad. And if you look at it, it actually says ad right up there. So they've paid to be at the top of the list. Now all that means is I just need to take my finger and move this up a little bit, and I'll eventually see Messenger is right there. Now, right now, Messenger says open, and that's because I already have it on my phone. If I didn't have it on my phone, you'd see the word get, or on some devices, you might see the word install. So if you don't have it on your phone, you would touch get or install, and that would put it onto your phone. Just a word of warning, especially things like iPhones. If I'm trying to add an app to my device, very often it's going to ask me to type in the password for my Apple ID. And when your phone was set up, it was set up with an email address and a password. And that's kind of a way of preventing other people from putting stuff onto your phone when you don't want them to. Now, some people set up their phones so free apps just get automatically downloaded, but I'm just mentioning this to be aware that if you go to get Messenger, you may be asked to provide the email and password that was used to set up your phone initially. Now, if I want to go into Messenger from here, I would touch open, but I'm not going to. I'm actually going to press my home button just to get back to my icons, because 99% of the time, I'm going to be touching the Messenger app on the screen. So Messenger, once again, is in the fourth row. I'm going to touch on Messenger. And in this instance, I have a situation where I see a list of all the people I've previously chatted with in this group. And I'm in my instructor account right now. I know because if I look way up to the upper left corner, I see this profile picture of me in a suit. And I see all the people I've previously chatted with. I also see a picture of Colette up there, and there's a green dot by her name, and that's an indicator to me that she's online right now. So if I wanted to have a chat with her, I could touch on her picture and start into a chat. But instead of doing that, I think I am going to go and chat with my friend John Brown. And to do that, I'm just going to go and touch on his name in the list, and that opens up the chat window for us to communicate. So just so you know, with this chat window, you're going to notice a few different things appear on it. So looking just at the top, it says John Brown. That's who I'm talking to. It indicates, again, there's a message here with the number 2. So there's a couple messages outstanding in the conversation. And what I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to look over to the upper right corner, and I'm going to look at the 2 icons. One looks like a little phone, like the handset of a phone, and the other one looks like a little camera. Now, these 2 items are kind of neat because let's say I'm not too good at typing. What I could do is I could touch on that little picture of the phone, and that would change this from being a text messaging sort of chat, an online chat, to being an actual phone call. And what would happen is John Brown's phone would ring, and he would see on his screen that he has a Facebook audio call coming in. And if he touches on that, we'd be able to chat just through our microphone. So I could chat, say, through my phone, or if I'm contacting him, say, through my computer, I could talk through my computer as long as I have a microphone and a microphone on my computer that works, or like a headset with a microphone or those sorts of things. Right beside it, there's a little picture of a rectangle that looks like it has a little widget on the side, and that's supposed to be a camera. Now, what that will let me do is if I click on that, that will let me start a video call with John Brown. And if we're both talking over our phones, nowadays every phone has both a microphone and a camera built into it. So you could change this into a video call if you're not too big on typing. The one thing to warn you about with either the audio or video calls is it's usually best to do this if you're at home and you know that your phone is connected to a Wi-Fi network. Now, that's a little bit outside kind of the social media stuff here. This has more to do with the way your phone or tablet operates. But in any situation, if you can connect your phone or tablet, your mobile device to your home Wi-Fi network or to a Wi-Fi network wherever you happen to be, let's say at the library or at a Tim Hortons or at a hotel, if you can connect to their Wi-Fi networks, what that means is you're not using your cell phone data plan to make the call. So if you're outside of your house and you're not connected to a Wi-Fi network, it uses your monthly data allotment given to you by TELUS or Shaw or whoever is giving you your phone service. So keep in mind, if you want to do audio calls and video calls, find out how to make sure that your phone is connected to either your home Wi-Fi or the Wi-Fi of where you're located, and do that before you make any of those sorts of calls. When it comes to text chatting, like we're about to do in a few moments here, again, that's usually not going to put too big of a dent into your monthly cell phone plan. So if you're chatting that way, usually you don't have to worry too much. And if you have a cell phone data plan that's unlimited, then this whole argument or this whole discussion, you don't have to worry about, because if it's unlimited data, then you can text or video or do these calls, these audio calls, as much as you like. But if you're, minding your pennies, find out how to connect your phone to the Wi-Fi in your house. I think you'll be glad that you do. All right, now let's go back to basics here. If I go and I look at the very bottom of my screen, I have this little box with a large A and a small a in it, uppercase, lowercase. And if I touch there, you're going to see that pops up my typing pad. And this is how I can send a text message to somebody. So if I want to send a message to John Brown, I touch where the large A and little a are, and I can type in a message. How's it going? And I'll throw in a question mark. And now at this point, I'm going to touch on the right-hand side of the message. There's a little blue triangle that's supposed to look like a little blue paper airplane. And if I touch on that, that's going to send the message. It gets added to the conversation above because the chat feature keeps a record of all the conversations I've had between myself and John Brown. Now, on John Brown's side of the world, what he can elect to do is he can, of course, reply to me. So I'm just going to, if you haven't guessed already, I'm actually having a conversation between 2 accounts that I own. So sometimes that's a little easy to get jumbled up with. Uh, and in my previous desktop tutorial, I actually was chatting between two accounts with the same name, and pardon me if that was confusing. Hopefully, using this fake John Brown account will kind of clarify things a little bit better. Uh, so in this instance, I'm going to go in there and I'm just going to go, it's going great. And I'm going to have to make sure. One of my problems with chatting is I don't proofread things particularly well. So it's going to fire in and I'll find out that it's going great. By the way, that previous it's going was a mistake I made. I hit an enter key too quickly. So that's the proper message. It's going great. So that's fantastic. That's looking good. Now, at this point, I may want to send another message to John Brown, but in this case, maybe I want to gussy up the message a little bit. Maybe I want to throw in something. And in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop in a picture to kind of be the basis of my message. By the way, where it says it's going, I can leave that there because that was a mistake that John made. But a little bit later, we'll talk about how to unsend messages as well if you need to do that. I would leave that up to John to unsend his message. So let's say at this point, I want to send another message to John, except this time around, I would like to go and I would like to send John a picture, not just a message, but a picture. So what I can do is you'll notice that by the texting box there, with the one with the capital and lowercase a, that there's a little square with what looks like a triangle and a dot inside of it. So I'm going to touch on that little square with the triangle and the dot, and that's going to present a variety of pictures to me. So I'm going to touch the one with the cat. Now, if I wanted to send more than one picture, I could go and touch on a variety of pictures in that lower half, and I could even use my finger to scroll or move through the pictures. But in this case, I'm only going to send the one. So I'm going to touch the send button. If I touch the send button, it sends out the picture as part of the conversation. And I could even follow that up by touching in the text area and saying, how do you like my cats? Or cats, plural. And I'll send that off. And that goes off to John Brown. Now, what may happen is John may look at this and go, whoa, I like them. So what he can do is he can definitely reply to me, and we'll just do that for a second. And you might notice that as the reply is being typed, that you see these little bouncing dots on your screen, and that just indicates that the reply is being typed, and in a moment or two, it's going to be sent. And in my case, John is being, a little quick on the trigger. He's not bothering to capitalize or put in any punctuation. And that's absolutely fine. You'll find people do that too. Okay. So, he says they look great. Well, there is that little message down beneath that says double tap to put a heart onto this. And the heart is a reaction. But what I prefer to do is if I want to add a reaction to a specific comment, what I can do is I can hold my finger down on the actual comment for about 3 seconds, and it gives me a variety of emojis to use. So in this instance, I'm going to go and maybe tap on the heart, and that just applies a heart to that person's comment. So if you really like something that someone has said, you can hold your finger down on their comment for a few seconds, let that variety of emojis pop up, and then you can touch on emoji to apply kind of a reaction to it. Okay. I might even, I'll go one other step here. Rather than sending a picture that I've already taken, maybe I'm going to take an actual picture of something. So I'm going to say, check out the stuff I am working on, pardon me, a message came in during that. That was a totally different text message. Please disregard that. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, check out the stuff I am working on. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and send this out. So now I've said that I want them to check out the stuff I'm working on. They're probably going to wonder if I don't follow it up with a picture what I'm doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to touch on that little camera icon, the one directly to the right of the plus sign. And I'm going to touch on that little camera icon. It'll take a second or two, and it's going to start my camera. So this is not going to be a fantastic picture. It's a little bit blue, but all I'm going to do is I'm going to snap a picture of my screens, and I'm going to move up a little bit, kind of get a better look at it there. And I'm going to touch that little white dot at the bottom. And when I do that, I basically snapped the picture. Now, granted, it's not the greatest picture, but it was just meant to illustrate the process. So I'm going to touch send. And as soon as I touch send, pardon me, I'm going to touch done because some editing came up here. I'm going to go done, and I'm going to touch send again. And in this case, I could add text to this if I want. I'm not going to. Again, I'm just going to try and just send this out. And it asks me, do I want to save the picture to my camera roll so I can have it on my phone as well? So yeah, I'll save it. And it gets sent. And you'll notice that it goes out as part of the conversation, and it's also saved. And who knows, maybe John's going to go, he's going to reply to that. So John sends in his response, and again, it appears pretty well instantaneously on my screen. I'm going to go back and touch once again. Actually, this time around, I'm going to send a little bit of a different message. And in that group of icons beside the big A and little a, there's a little microphone. Now, often if you see a microphone, say on your keyboard when you're on your phone, like when that little typing screen pops up on your phone, you're going to get a microphone there. And if you touch on it, sometimes that will actually type out what you're saying. But this microphone just records what you say, and it sends it out as a sound file to the other person. And so I'm going to touch on the microphone, and it's just going to start recording my voice. And you're going to see that little wave show up there. And it's going to be, I'll say something like, hello, John, how are things going? When this comes up on your side of the world, you can just click or touch on the little arrow that will be beside it, and you'll be able to hear the actual message. So thanks for playing along, John. And when I want to send it, I just touch that little triangle on the side. And it actually sends a sound file out to John. Now, if I want to hear that sound file myself, I can actually touch on that little triangle in the conversation, and it will play it back. And it's just going to start recording my voice, and you're going to see that little wave show up there. And it's going to be, I'll say something like, hello, John, how are things going? When this comes up on your side of the world, you can just click or touch on the little arrow that will be beside it, and you'll be able to hear the actual message. So now I went and I touched on the two little lines that were on that message just to stop the playing of it. It doesn't affect John on the other side. He can listen to it, and again, he can reply to what was said. And I'll let John do that. All right, and in instances like this, and that's the fun part of chat too. I mean, people will usually, like any conversation, you'll kind of tease each other and have fun with doing that sort of stuff. Now, something else that I can do though is, you'll notice I only have, those 3 items that are there, or well, 3 items in the plus sign at the bottom. But you'll also notice that I have down here a little emoji as well. And if I once again go touch down where that little, where the A and B is, I'm going to go and I'm going to type in or actually I won't. I'm going to get rid of that there. I'm just going to leave that empty. And rather than typing a message back, I'm going to use that little smiley face, that little blue smiley face in the message area, and I'm going to touch on it instead. And if I touch on that little blue smiley face, then I get a bunch of stickers. And I actually get a bunch of different sorts of things that I can send as, say, reactions to a text. So right here, first off, you'll see that there's a little black star that looks like it's selected. And these are stickers, and I can, move them back and forth to find a sticker that's appropriate to this. Very often, the first one of the laughy smiley face there, I'm going to touch on that. And that's going to send this little laughy smiley face with the googly eyes as a reaction. Now, other reactions in this group, if I touch the little icon right beside the star, I can search for stickers. So in this case, I just have a smiley sticker there, but I can touch where it says search stickers, and maybe I'll type in cats, and that will give me a bunch of cat related stickers. And I'll choose this one here with the 2 cats kind of hugging. And that could be also a reaction that I'll send back to John. Other items, there are these things called GIFs or GIFs. If I touch on those, they give me a variety of animated things, and you'll notice that a lot of them are Halloween related. But again, there's a search box just above them. So if I touch where the search box is, once again, I go looking for cats. I can find all sorts of goofy little creatures. So I'm going to choose this one here, the one that's kind of shimmying back and forth, and send that as a reaction or as something that just spices up the conversation. And last but not least, there is a little speaker here. And if I want to send a sound, for instance, like this air horn, I can touch send, although there's a bunch of other ones down here as well. And I'm just going to move this out, and I'll touch send. And on the other side, what John Brown will hear is he'll hear the sound of air horns. I don't usually send sounds very often. If anything, I'm more likely to go back to the stickers area and use those if I'm going to go and send just kind of visual responses to things. Now, if I go back and I touch in the text area here, I'm going to say something like, let's say, John, you really should proofread. Now, with that in mind, John, you really should proofread. I'm going to send this message out. Now, I might think to myself, you know what? Oh, I didn't phrase that quite nicely. I may find a better way to say it. So what I might want to do is I might want to unsend this message. So to do that, what I can do is I can hold my finger down on the message again for about 3 seconds. And you'll notice I get not only the little icons here, but I get a plus sign on the side. And you may also notice that down at the bottom, I get reply, forward, and more. Well, I actually want to direct your attention to more. And if I touch on more, I get an option to unsend the actual message. So if I touch unsend, it asks, do you want to unsend for everyone or just unsend for me? I'm going to say unsend for everyone, because that then will include John. And the message will be unsent. Unsent messages are removed from the conversation, but they may still be included if the conversation is reported. So if let's say I was saying something absolutely horrendous to someone and they chose to report me to Facebook, then unsending doesn't do a lot for me. But if it's just something where I may have phrased it improperly, or I just want to take back the message, I'll touch OK, and the message you'll see has been unsent. Now, on the other side, they'll see that I unsent a message to them, so that might spark a conversation, but it is a way to at least get it out. So if you want to rephrase the comment or be a little more gentle about what you're saying, you have the opportunity to text something else. You could just text again and say, I'm sorry that I phrased it that way, and do another message, but it never hurts to unsend a message if you're really concerned about that. One of the other issues that I'll also bring up is there will be plenty of times where you'll want to do something like maybe bring a conversation to a close. So if I want to bring a conversation to a close, let's say I'm chatting with him, maybe let me throw another comment to John and get the conversation rolling again, and say, I'm going to send a message to John and say, do you like cats? And I send that off to John. And maybe John on his side of the world, instead of sending me a text message, if you look at where I was typing the text messages, right beside that blue smiley face, there is a thumbs up, a blue thumbs up. Well, John will have the same thing either on his device, or if he's working on his computer, he can do it from there as well. He will go and he can click on the thumbs up. And if he sends me a thumbs up, basically what that is it's a way of him, just acknowledging the message. And, in that case, he's essentially sending a like. So in that situation, he's just choosing just to use the thumbs up instead. And that indicates that he likes cats or likes what I said. So I might message him back and say, cool. And I just type that in and touch the little airplane to send it off. Okay, let's say I want to bring the little conversation to a close. I'm going to go, got to let you go, John. And I'm going to add to the end of it TTFN. And you'll see that in my case, my auto text is putting it uppercase. That's fine. If I want to accept that, that's okay. I could tap the space bar if I want, or I could touch this capitalized item. I touch the X on it just to turn it off. But TTFN is, it's short for ta-ta for now. So I'm going to go ahead and send it out. The other thing that people will sometimes informally use that little thumbs up for is if John sends me a thumbs up in my conversation, especially at the end of a conversation, I can send him a thumbs up as well by touching it on my side. And that's kind of a way of saying, yeah, okay, got it from both sides. And then from there, we can conclude our conversation, move on to something else. All right. So that's just a little bit about using Facebook on your mobile. One thing I'd like to talk about as well when we're working with this sort of stuff is if I go and I touch, let's say, on that little plus sign by the text field, I'm going to go ahead and do that, touch on the plus sign. That takes us into a place called Rooms, and that's a way to do kind of a group conversation, a group video chat. In this case, we're focusing on the basics, so I'm going to hold off on that for a little bit. Right beside that little camera, there's a little thing that looks like a gray paper airplane. If I go and I touch on that, that's going to be a way that you can share where you're at right now, your live location. I'm not really going to suggest you do that. I'm not too big of a fan of sharing out locations. Some people really like to do that if they're, say, reviewing a restaurant, or if they're on the road on vacation, or they're promoting themselves. But one of my concerns is that, you're basically, even though it's a private message, you're still sending to the person on the other side where you're located. Now, if it's a friend or family member, you absolutely trust that person, not the end of the world. But again, I'm always kind of leery about sending out my location at a given point, or doing those sorts of things. Now, let's say I want to go back and start a conversation again. I've concluded my conversation here with John Brown. So if I want to get out of this conversation, but return to my list of other conversations that I've had, what I can do is, you'll see in the upper left corner what looks like a pointer, and it's pointing to the left. So I'm going to go and touch on that little pointer and take a step back. So in that instance, there's a whole list of things. And it's a list of people, as I said a little bit earlier, that I've either previously chatted with, had conversations with, or have, sent me, a chat message, and I've engaged with them. So if I scroll my finger up and down, I'm going to see that there's a few different people who've been students in this class previously who've sent me messages here. One of my issues is sometimes I'm a little tardy about going and checking all my instructor accounts. So sometimes it's best to try to get me via email, or texting me directly. But let's say I'm just coming back into my account and I want to go and engage in a conversation with someone. So the other thing I'm going to ask you to pretend about is that I have a much longer list of chats here in this window, more than I just have hanging around in here. Now, in instances like that, I might need to go and actually search for somebody in my list. So in this case, I know it's not going to be too spectacular, because you see that John Brown is already at the top of the list. He has a green dot. So that indicates to me, if I want to chat with him, he's online right now. So if I want to chat with him, I'll just touch on that little picture of the beach above John Brown, and that will take me back into the conversation I just had with him. I'm going to take a step back. Or if I want to, I could touch his name down here on just the list of conversations. John Brown is appearing just above Sean Gramiak. But I'm just going to take a look down here and say, okay, so let's say I wanted to engage in a conversation with my sister, Pam. What I can do is I can touch up in the search box and I can type in Pam's name, and it just shortens it to a list of people. And more people are people that I might not even have in my friends list yet. So I may not have made contact with them. And if I do not have them in my friends list, they'll still get a message, but it'll go to a section of Facebook or of the Messenger that's kind of like, it's an area where people that I have not made friends of yet can send messages to, but I have to go in there and accept them as friends first before I can converse with them and add them to my friends list. In my case, above more people, that's where the people who are already in my friends list will be. So I'm going to go touch on Pamela Brown. And there isn't much in the way of a conversation here, because quite frankly, my sister doesn't use Facebook very much. But if I wanted to send her a message, I'll type in, hi, how's it going? And again, I know she's not online because there's no green dot up by her name, but I can still send her a message and it'll still go to her account. Now I'm going to take one more step back to my list of people here. One last way to engage in a message, and this is probably going to be the way you'll first start chatting with your friends through Messenger, if you're going to be using it through your phone. If they're not already appearing within this list of chats in front of you, you may need to go up to that little square in the upper right corner where it has a little pencil on the corner. So immediately to the right of the word chats, there's a little square with a pencil on it. And if you touch on that little square with the pencil, it's going to bring up a list of all of your friends. And again, you could go in and search, Or if they're already showing up here on this suggested list, let's say I want to get back into my conversation with John Brown. I can touch on John Brown and it takes me right back into the conversation. So if that's the case, and I'm not going to go any further with John, I'm just going to cancel him out for now. 99% of the time, what's going to happen, and I'm going to shut down Messenger for a second. The way I do that on an iPhone is I'll double click my home button and I'll just swish it off the top of the screen. I'll flick it off the top of the screen. I'll do that with the rest of my apps too, and I'll just fire them on up. So in this instance, let's say I go back to Messenger after a few days. I just set my phone aside or I haven't engaged in any Messenger conversations. I will go and I'll touch on the Messenger icon on my phone and that will reopen Messenger. That will show me a list of all my chats. And if I've never chatted with the person before and they're on my friends list, I'll go and use that little square in the upper right corner with the pencil and I'll touch on it and I'll search for them. So again, I'll touch on it. And if I wanted to chat with John Brown, I would simply touch John Brown with his name on it. And that will take me back in. So again, if I haven't done a chat message, use the square with the pencil, and then from the list of names that you get, touch on the person you want to speak to. That'll open up a chat window and you can start sending messages back and forth. The other method, after you've chatted with someone for the first time, 99% of the time you'll start Messenger, you'll find their name in this list here of chats, and you'll just go and touch on their name, and that will take you back in. And as I said a little bit earlier, the nice thing about the chat is you can chat with the same person a dozen different times over the year, but all of your conversations will be kept together in one big long thread. So if you only chat with someone every once in a while or every few months, you'll be able to go back and see previous conversations that you've had, and they'll even be dated. So you'll see like older conversations will have the actual dates of the conversations, and newer ones will have, like if they're just today, they will feature today's time on them. So like when the chat started. And once again, if I'm done with the chat and I just want to take a step out of here, I'll go to the upper left corner of my screen and I'll look for those two little lines that form an arrow pointing to the left, and I'll touch on those and that'll bring me back here into Messenger. Now, with these sorts of things too, I can also, with my finger, I can pull the messages from side to side and bring up certain little icons. So if I pull the message over to the right, it's going to take me into the message. If I push the message to the left, you'll get options such as more and archive. And again, archive is a way to get the conversation out of my message list, but keep it within Facebook so it can still be searched. I don't archive a lot of messages. If it's someone I haven't spoken to in years and I'm pretty sure they're off of Facebook, I might choose to archive them. If I touch more, it gives me the option to mark the message as unread. And I'm just going to mark this message as being unread. And you'll see unread messages show up in your list of chats as being darker. They're a little bit bold. So that's my indicator that I haven't looked at certain messages. So for instance, Diane sent me a message way back in May that I didn't have it. I chatted with her independently of this, but that's a message I didn't take a look at. So this is a way I can mark things as being unread. The moment I go and I touch on it and I look at the message and I come back, you'll see that the text, the bolding comes off and it's now officially been read. I'm going to go back, pull this over just one more time a little bit, touch more again. You also have the options to mute the person. And if I mute a person, I can still come back and unmute them. But basically, it's a way that I can kind of stop talking to them more or less. Ignore is kind of, it's the same thing. It's one step over mute, but I don't use these two very much because usually I get along with everybody I'm chatting with. In very serious situations, let's say you have an issue with your friend, you can mute them for a while so they can't contact you. But basically, if things get really serious and you have to kind of, I hate to say it, get them out of your lives a little bit, you can choose to delete the entire conversation. And that's different than unsending part of the conversation. That's deleting the conversation, the whole kit and caboodle. And if you just don't want any communication from them whatsoever, you can block them. And sadly enough, I know a lot of people who have blocked friends on Messenger because, again, they've had blowout arguments or whatever, and they've just had to do so. In my case, luckily, I have not had to use any of these commands to any great extent. I'm just going to cancel them. The most common command I'd use on that entire list would be mark as unread, by the way. But I'm going to go ahead and cancel this, return to things as they were. And that, my friends, is a little overview of the messenger. One other thing I almost forgot, but most of the time, if you look at the bottom of your screen, you're going to see icons for chats, and that's where we are right now. Right beside it, there's a little icon for calls, and if I touch on that, that will give me a log of calls. If I've made video calls from this account or audio calls using the little picture of the phone or the little camera, or if I want to go and make an audio or video call to someone, you'll see that all of my people I've chatted with previously are listed in the lower half. And if I want to make a phone call to them, like a Facebook phone call, I'd touch the little phone. Or if I wanted to try to get them into a video call, I'd touch the little camera. And again, a notification would come up on their phone. And if they accept the call, then you're either talking as you would over a phone, or if you are chatting over video, you'd see each other. You'd turn your phone into a video call. If I touch on people along the bottom, that's going to show people that I've primarily recently talked to, or or if I've used this account more and more often, you'll see that there will be more folks that I've corresponded with. It's just that I haven't reached out to many people from this account. And the last thing in the little group there is called stories. And stories, I don't jump into them too much in Messenger, but the idea behind stories is, and I'm just going to go back to my chat icon, I'm going to touch on it. Stories are basically either pictures or videos that you add to your Facebook account that only last a little while on Facebook, and then they're automatically erased. So unlike a post, which stays on Facebook until you erase it, if you add something to your stories in Facebook, your friends will be able to see it for a little while, but eventually it'll expire and be removed off of Facebook, and it'll come out of your Messenger. 99% of the time, if you're starting with the Facebook Messenger, you will be in the chats area. And again, you'll see chats at the top of the screen, just like it looks now. And you'll see that little blue bubble with the tail with chats at the bottom of it. That's where you'll spend the majority of your time. And that, my friends, is a little introduction to the basics of using chat. Of course, there's a few more things you can jump into from this, but as long as you get to the point where you're handling the chat feature on your either phone or iPad or Android tablet, as the case may be, once you're nice and proficient in there, then you can really start to branch out and do some pretty cool additional stuff. But for now, start working on these skills, get proficient, and it's going to make any of the other stuff you need to learn way easier.